So I finally got the Speeduino in my truck. I connected the O2 sensor, I popped the key in, I turned it, and then nothing. Well, actually no, not nothing. I put this guy in here, and what I actually found is that when I turned the key, the truck started cranking, started turning over. I had fuel smell coming from the engine bay, so both my fuel pump ran and my fuel injectors went off. So then, why didn't it start? Well, I don't have an honest answer for that, but I have some guesses. The first obviously being that either my timing or my spark is off, right? So either something is off inside the Tuner Studio file, that it did not fire the spark plugs the way it was supposed to, or maybe the timing is off, you know, basically like timing versus what this assumes the timing is might be incorrect. I was pretty sure I got all my settings set correctly. The base file, right, base tune that I do have should be able to run my truck without the cam angle signal. So if I were to turn that off, I could probably get this to start the truck. But my thing is, I want that cam angle signal, right? I want the higher resolution and better tuning ability that I'll get if I can get cam angle as well as crank angle, right? So my plan of attack here is I'm going to get the guy that tuned my friend Civic to come through. Now he tunes on Tuner Studio and is familiar with that platform, which is exactly what I need. And I'll just have him connected right into the ECU as I try to crank the truck. And from there, he'll probably have a much better idea than I do as to what exactly is going on. And he'll be able to see it in the tune as well, I'm sure, inside the Tuner Studio logs. So that will probably be enough to get me started. And then from there, I can actually run the truck. I also learned something. If you're going to use the 4Runner ECU casing in the Tacoma, well, where this being a little bit thicker, when the bracket inside of there grabs this, it's going to scrape whatever paint off. So for future purposes, if I build another one of these, or any of you build one of these, and 4Runner housings being a lot easier to come by than actual Tacoma ones, you may end up doing what I did. This is V6 4Runner housing, right? Make sure not to paint this plate at all, or just not to paint this region, because it's going to get scraped off. Or maybe you powder coat it if you have that set up, and then just have some light scratches in it. Either way, not something you want to do, but good news is obviously things are wired correctly and things are firing the way they should. I'm just missing something to get that spark into that fuel and run the motor. So I'm going to be working with a tuner to do that, and hopefully soon I have this thing up and running on this, and then we can start goofing off and doing launch control and you know, skip shift and rev matching and all this other stuff, which I'm definitely going to look into doing. I'm going to get myself a header pretty soon here, so hopefully I can do that kind of concurrently and then automatically have him tune, you know, with the header and see what gains I can get out of there. Obviously I have my flex fuel sensor, which I definitely, you know, want to get that going too. That's going to require me to redo my fuel lines in order to eliminate all the rubber sections, obviously. And I'll take advantage and move my fuel filter, just because on the Tacoma, the fuel filter is underneath the intake manifold in a really uncomfortable to get to position. So I'll probably axe that setup and have a fuel filter somewhere underneath by the frame where it's easy to get at, easy to replace when necessary. So put it in order to radium is probably what I'm going to do, and get all their Teflon lines with AN fittings and set that up so I can eliminate the factory rubber portions. And then hopefully by then this thing is doing its thing. I've generally been doing some maintenance. Obviously, if we're going to do performance things with the Tacoma, which I have done performance things with the Tacoma, just not engine performance, short of like my intake and kind of like straight through exhaust, but real actual exhaust, you know, engine performance stuff requires tuning. So now that we're doing that, I think the truck needs to be in good health. So I've been doing some maintenance and cleaning some things up on the truck, and I'll go ahead and show you guys that. So I've continued to make some upgrades in my engine bay and just mechanically to this car. So if I'm going to be moving to a standalone in this truck, then it should be mechanically healthy before we do too much else. So here, what I did was I did all new spark plugs, spark plug wires, brand new valve cover gasket, brand new O-ring on my distributor. I've gone ahead and done oil as well. I added a brand new aluminum radiator. This was a recent one because I figured that radiator would be on its last legs. Lasted a long time. It's probably about 15 years. AutoZone radiator that was in there, and probably died a little prematurely just because my hood vent allows sunlight to get through there, so the UV hitting the plastic end tanks probably wasn't ideal. Leaked right around the seam where the plastic meets the metal. In this case, I've gone to a full aluminum radiator to hopefully circumvent that. I've grounded the radiator, which would hopefully help with any currents and electrolysis. I'm also going to run a flush real soon. I plan to change out the fluid pretty frequently just to protect it, but also because I want to swap the drain bolt for a sacrificial anode. Now, when you have one of these, you can put a sacrificial anode inside of it, which will corrode instead of the aluminum. You see that on water heaters, for example, on like the tank style. They'll have that exact thing in place. If you ever look at the top, you see all these circles. You can actually pop them out, and they're these big sacrificial anode rods that are there specifically so that they rust instead of the tank itself rusting out. So I may get that to kind of help circumvent any corrosion inside this thing, but threw this on last night. This was a really quick swap. If you've never done it before on a Tacoma, it's not really a lot of work. You take out your front corner lights and your front grille. That may require you to remove the front bumper, which is not crazy either. And then there's 4 bolts that hold the radiator supports. Nice thing with this aluminum one is you no longer have steel supports on the side. The supports are just aluminum sheet that's welded to the radiator itself, so you do save weight, and this is a thicker core than what I had in there prior. Just driving it today to the gym and back, it definitely took longer for the vehicle to get up to temperature. Took me, I was probably way further down the road by the time it reached normal operating temp. So I would say it definitely seems to cool a little bit better than the OEM style one that I had prior, but time will tell. Also got new belts in the sucker, which I did a video on for you guys to see. Didn't really do a video for this radiator because it was a really quick and dirty job. I needed it swapped out so I could drive it today, so I did it last night. Not really good conditions for filming either, because I was out here in the dark with just a lamp, but it's so easy. There's really not much to it. The belt has greater complexity, believe it or not, so I got that done. I've got to do some more cleanup around the motor and see if the oil buildup that I was seeing is from something that I still have not addressed, which it may very well not be, just because I haven't seen any more oil buildup ever since I did my valve cover gasket and distributor O-ring, and I did some cleaning with brake cleaner. So I'm gonna mess around and see what I find, but I suspect we may be in the clear as far as that goes. Alright, so I just got this package in from Evasive Motorsports. I've bought a few things from them over the years. They sell all kinds of cool JDM bling. So obviously I've got a brand new blingy aluminum radiator. I need a dope radiator cap. So you're probably thinking, wait a second, you have a Toyota truck. Why the heck are you putting a Spoon Sports radiator cap? That's a Honda thing. Well, first of all, it fits. Second of all, the radiator cap I've always run was a Spoon Sports. So for context, back in the day, my friend Mo had a Honda build that made it to a magazine cover. He later sold that car, and one of the pieces that he kept happened to be that radiator cap, and he let me have it, so it was on my truck, and that's how a random, Honda part ended up there. Unfortunately, this little emblem had fallen off of it, so years later I decided, you know what, I want to keep that going, and so I ordered another one. Let's just assemble this really quickly. This is how this comes from Spoon Sports. You really shouldn't use your caliper for this, but it's something stabby. resin emblem that's attached to the top. You see, made in Japan. This is higher pressure than a standard one. I forget what the pressure was. But let's go ahead. Basically, they just put a stronger spring on it so that more pressure is required to get it to release. They're mounted, and let's go ahead and put it in the car. There we go. Try to push down on it a little bit. There we go. Interesting. Might have a little too much coolant in here. That's alright. I plan to drain it soon anyway. Alright. Put my bother cap on. I should have put the little sticker thing on after mounting it, but oh well. Actually, I'm pretty happy with that. Can't complain. Little by little, this engine bay is getting nicer to look at. So I have headers and individual throttle bodies. I think that's really gonna set it off. Since I upgraded my radiator to an aluminum one, I figured I'd go ahead and upgrade my overflow, my reservoir, right? So this is the original 1996 coolant flow reservoir, and as you can see, it's a little ugly. These things, I mean, it's impressive that it lasted since 1996, but yeah, it could stand to be a little prettier, so I'm gonna go ahead and replace this guy if we can, and if it's not too crazy, with something a little bit different. What I'm planning to replace it with is this nice aluminum container, because that obviously won't go bad the same way. One thing I am a little worried about is that does have a hose that comes all the way down, and I wonder if that doesn't let coolant kind of backflow, which I don't think this will do. So I may have to innovate something here. Definitely want to get that ugly old thing out. I mean, push comes to shove, assuming I couldn't use it for that, I could use it as a washer fluid reservoir, I guess. This is an aluminum coolant reservoir. It's like 30 bucks on eBay. It holds 2 liters. I basically added a fitting here in the bottom. If you do buy this on eBay like I did, keep in mind that the threads on here, they don't tell you what they are, so if you needed any different fittings or plugs versus what they gave you, I want to say the thread that they used is 916/18 UNC, not UNF. So make sure that you get UNC instead of UNF, because that way everything will thread in nicely. It's very easy to, you know, use a tap or something and think that, oh wait, this 9/16, I guess, and then go off that, and then when you get the actual fitting, it doesn't fit correctly, it doesn't want to thread in. So just letting you guys know, save somebody potentially some hassle. These are pretty cheap. I ordered another one that's 1 liter, so it should be like up to here, to be my windshield washer fluid reservoir, just to replace both my jank old 1996 original coolant reservoir and original windshield washer reservoir, both of which are still functional, but they're, you know, the plastic looks ugly, so I want to go ahead and replace it with something nicer looking that will hold up better over time, and aluminum is that. This might be probably cheap aluminum that somebody welded, but they did a pretty good job on the welds. It looks nice. They did a really good job on the finish. It's like a little nice either powder coat or paint, I don't know what, but it looks great. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the truck. It's going to require some mods because I don't think this will fit in the space directly, but it's close enough. So here is my OEM coolant overflow. Now, the sucker is ugly and actually not in as good as condition as I thought, because pulling it out resulted in me cracking this here. So, plastic is obviously very oxidized. Maybe if I'd never touched it, could have done this job for a long time to come, but either way, I'm glad to remove it, put this in now. While they are close, in some ways, realistically, like, this is thicker this way than that one is. That one's wider this way. So the thickness in particular is going to be a bit of an issue with getting it fitted. I'm going to definitely have to remove the mount for this to create extra room for this guy. Alright, so I did some messing about in the engine bay in the truck, and it seems that this is not going to be an easy thing to fit where the original one was, and I'll probably end up having to build some custom brackets to make this work. So that's going to have to be a subject for another video, because I'm definitely not going to be able to turn this around quickly. So in the interim, looks like I'll be running the OEM one until such a time as I can get this one figured out, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. I'll throw up another video when I do that so you guys can see what I end up doing. Definitely there's going to be more to be done to get ready for the Speeduino, but also there's going to be some work that I'm going to be doing really soon just to make the Speeduino work. So stay tuned for that. I promise I will get the tuner out here and get that sorted for you guys so we can finally have kind of that compendium of information of how to Speeduino a Tacoma with crank and cam angle signals. So just thank you guys so much for following along this series. I promise there is more to come. Stay tuned.